Welcome to Scriptural Snapshots, brought to you by Living Faith Ministries in Kaiser, West Virginia, where we bring the living Word of God into your life. I'm Pastor Gordon Brubaker. We're studying a word, we're trying to get into a word of the Lord that He gave us on December the 9th, 2025, for the year of 2026. And He said, in 2026, some things will be fixed. Things that have been transplanted in America will not survive because the soil will not let them thrive. Now that's an interesting phrase to me, that the soil will not let them thrive. We have transplanted a lot of things into the American thought life and into our education system and into our political system. We talked some about this yesterday, about how truth is optional, how we make our own truth today. We don't believe in the Bible. There's a lot of people in the church that don't believe the Bible. And they say, well, the Bible was written by men as inspired by God. Well, what does that mean? Well, if you use the Bible to interpret itself, it says to be inspired is to be God-breathed. In other words, God wrote, or men wrote the Bible as God gave them wisdom. I like the honesty of Paul. Paul says, that these things are right to you, but he comes to a point, he says, now this is my opinion. In other words, God didn't tell me this. This isn't what I got directly from a download with God. This is how I understand things. It's the same thing as Moses. Well, why did Moses allow divorce if the divorce is wrong? Because of the hardness of your heart. And so Paul's dealing with that same thing, with the hardness of our heart. Sometimes you just have to, okay, we're going to let this pass, and so we're going to make this rule. But this isn't the will of God. This is just what we're going to have to put up with because you're too stubborn to get it right. I mean, you're missing the point. That's called sin, is to miss the mark. And the church doesn't want to deal with sin. And this came in years and years and years ago when I was in seminary. Now, this is in the 1970s, the late 1970s. So that's been a long time ago. It's been 45 years ago. In seminary, we had what was called critical theory. And I didn't think much about it at the time. I didn't really grasp what was going on. But this has infiltrated into the church of critical theory. And what critical theory is, and it breaks everything down to the lowest common denominator. And critical theory deconstructs everything. And we've deconstructed American history. We've deconstructed church history. We've taken it back now to where you can't even recognize history because it's all about being deconstructed and rebuilt. Critical theory is you break it down to the smallest elements and then you rebuild it. We have critical race theory. We have critical women's theory. We have critical math theory. We have critical everything. But here it is in seminary, and this is what they were teaching us at the time, and I'm sure in many seminaries it is still being taught. We can't trust any of the Bible because men wrote the Bible. It wasn't inspired by God. It wasn't heavenly directed. It was just men writing the Bible. Therefore, when we read the Gospels and we hear that Jesus said this, we don't really know that Jesus said that. We know that this is what John said Jesus said. We know this is what Mark said Jesus said, what Luke said, what Matthew said that Jesus said, but we don't really have evidence that Jesus actually said this. So therefore, we don't have to believe what is in the red letters because man could have just made this up. Well, see, that's critical theory. We're breaking it all down. In other words, there's no truth, but now that I am so much smarter, that I wasn't there when it happened. I'm not an eyewitness to it. I wasn't there in the culture when it was written down. I wasn't there in the debates about the Gospels. We weren't there about any of this, but now from 2,000 years later, I have the proper interpretation of what the Bible meant to say. And what did the Bible mean to say? It means to say whatever I want it to say because I've thrown it out. I've basically deconstructed the Bible to a point of where it makes no sense at all. So therefore, well, how do I know Jesus is the Son of God? There's an old hymn that I love to quote. It says, how do I know that Jesus lives? I know because He lives in me. Because when I got born again, the Bible became real to me. It's not a history book. It's not a theology book. It's a book about a relationship with the living God. And if God is living, then God speaks to us. If there is no God, if God is dead, then God doesn't speak to us, and we can make up our own religion. But if God is real, and He is, then we can be born again. And the born again experience will confirm to you the Scriptures are holy, the Scriptures are sacred, and the Scriptures are of God. This is why it says in 2026, some things will be fixed. Things that have been transplanted in America will not survive because the soil will not let them thrive. And I believe that all this critical theory is on its way. It is already on its way out, but it's going to be totally gone, I'm hoping, by the end of 2026, if not shortly thereafter, because it's just nothing but the lies of men coming against the knowledge of God. I'm Pastor Gordon Brubaker. God bless you.